There we are.
Perfect.
Good morning.
Hey.
Hi, good morning.
Welcome
Morning.
back,
Thanks.
Peg.
Happy spring.
I know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm really excited about just getting out in the sunshine, because and I don't know, this year more than others. I don't know what the deal is. I love winter, and I actually love getting up in the mountains and skiing in the spring, but now it's just that I want to get out and start hiking and biking more.
And rock climbing, like you're so active.
Yeah, I'm a little, yeah, and that's the thing. And my son, he rock climbs with me, but it's hard because I'm so much, I just get weaker every year,
Yeah. Yeah. Well, believe it.
It's tough.
Yeah. Well, believe it or not, I do enjoy the sunshine for the last 6 months on the beach, which is, in fact, it's my dog's birthday today. She's turning 5, and she's a 420 dog.
Oh,
So if you realize today's April 20th. So.
Oh, I guess it is. Yes.
important take for many.
Means different things for different people, right?
Right. Well, today's our dog's birthday, so.
Yeah, there you go.
But yeah, we miss instead of hanging out in the park in downtown Denver, we like to go hiking up in the foothills. So I'm looking forward to getting the dog back and going to the dog parks and going on the hiking trails and stuff. So
Yeah. And is it, so I know, Shar, is it difficult to travel with on dogs on the flights and so forth?
yeah, it's challenging, particularly if they're big, but our dogs are registered dogs. So we're compliant, but yeah, it could be a challenge, but we only do it a couple times a year. So
They go in the cabin with you, right? You don't put them in.
Yeah. I mean, Bruce has them qualified under his situations. So, but yeah, but it's still kind of a challenging process. But they're very well behaved. We have the most perfect German Shepherds you'd ever meet.
Yeah. Well, unlike my dogs, my dogs are as unruly as I am. So it's yeah, they don't listen a lot. I get
yeah. The only time my dogs are unruly is when they're yards from the waves, because Aspen, our white German Shepherd, is the dog surfer.
Yeah.
And then Sequoia, our red German Shepherd, is the little lifeguard. So she just jumps over the waves, and then Aspen goes and does a doggy surf back in. So the entire beach is recording these dogs. I should have a little tip jar, like a little tip jar. Perros entertainment, beach entertainment.
You should get your own social media page, and you coming in.
Actually, I've considered giving Aspen her own little social media page.
Yeah.
I've introduced her to the board, but she thinks that's a big toy. So we've put her on the board, but now she mainly just body surfs,
There's a dog that I follow. His name is Jif Pom. He's a little tiny Pomeranian. He does all sorts of tricks. He dresses up like with sunglasses and costumes. And he's a working dog. Like he's at conventions doing meet and greets, and like his owner is definitely making some good money out of that little dog.
There is not to admit this, but on Netflix, there's a show about social media dogs and all the social media that are influencers animals.
Real thing.
And they had an ugly dog contest. Even the ugly dogs have their own influencer followings.
They're a niche.
Yeah, as long as they're the ugliest dog on earth, and they get their own following. It's crazy.
It's like the grumpy cat too,
Right. The grumpy cat was very well, we got to have something to distract our minds, right? So we watch crazy animal videos.
Yeah, crazy. Hi, Sumit. Hi, Howard.
Hi there.
Hey guys.
Welcome. We were just
Hi, Jules.
Hello, good morning.
Hello, Greg. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
we were just talking about the craziness of social media and the times we live in. But we were getting ready to start in about 3 minutes, and so so hopefully people will be joining in, and we can start the conversation. But yeah, so the social media has I mean, there's just, it's amazing how much it's taken over, not just on a personal level, but also in a business. I mean, it's quite a big business. we were talking about influencers and I just had a client that basically manages influencers and sets them up with marketing contracts and so forth. And so it's a it's a big business out there. They're making a lot of money.
Oh, it's really weird. It's like, how the heck are you doing that? As due to all the advertising and clicks and various things. I
Yeah.
think my personal challenge is just keeping up with all the messages that I get, like on my LinkedIn, for example. There's a lot of people trying to sell me things, and then there's sometimes real legitimate people that would really like to network with me.
Yeah.
And I think, unfortunately, I probably missed some crucial messages because I get so many solicitation on these social media platforms.
And I think that's something that would be great to talk about today with Greg. I mean, there's just so many different channels, and when you're trying to network with people across different channels and so forth, I mean, how do you keep up, and are people forgiving when you miss and so forth?
Right. It could be a full-time 12-hour day just replying to messages. I don't know, Greg, what your thoughts are on that, but that's how I feel. I just I'm bombarded, but I'm glad people like to want to reach out to me. Maybe it's because of all my doggy surfing posts.
Next source of income.
Probably why they want to talk to me. It's like, well, you got the coolest dog ever.
Well, in Cabo, there's that sea lion puncher. I don't know if you've heard about him. He's like famous in the area. A lot of the fishermen, they'll take tourists out on the boats, and you can buy fish from the fishermen and feed the sea lion. And he's a big sea lion. He'll jump on the back of the boat and just like pose for photos. He loves he grabs fish, and then he swims away. So he's like still in the wild. It's like a natural, like he can't use.
But can you get a signed autograph?
Yeah.
I mean, he'd probably give you like a little high five with his little.
He's like a company mascot, a fisherman mascot.
Yeah, and like in the wild, so no one's like harming him or anything, but the fishermen are able
That's
to
pretty much
make a little profit just like taking the tourists out, and like because they know where he kind of hangs, and so
lucky guy.
yeah, it's not a bad kid.
All right, well, we are at the top of the hour, so let's go ahead and get kicked off, and so we can get all our listeners out there started on the strategy forum.
Yeah, we've been talking all sorts of things this morning. So it is my pleasure to welcome you all to the People Strategy Forum. Thank you so much for joining us wherever you may be, whether you're here with us live on Zoom, maybe you're listening to the podcast in your car. It doesn't matter, because at the end of the day, it's the same mission. We're really here to engage, energize, and elevate your employees and your company. So each week we get together, we have an awesome panel of hosts, and we always bring on a guest speaker, and we kind of have like fun conversations centered around the workplace, different issues and topics that come up. And we also encourage you to write your questions and comments in the chat. So if you have any questions at all today while we're live, or if you're coming to us from a different platform, please let us know your questions so we can get them answered. My name is Jules. I'll be introducing everyone today. And as you can see on your screens here, if you're with us on Zoom or watching the video version, we have everyone here. So nice full house today. Let's start with Shah. Now, Shah has an HR background. She also has her own company, Mountain Sea Health Advocacy, and she is also a career coach for expats. It's kind of a new venture she's diving into. It's called Mountain Sea Career Coaching, and she also consults with Sam's company, Comp Team, as well. So she's a very, very busy lady.
Yes, enjoy and never bored.
Never boring. That's my motto too. Give me anything but boring. That life's too short. We also have Howard. Howard is a compensation expert. He works with Sam at Comp Team as well, and he's worked for some large companies like Barclays, Citigroup, JP Morgan. And we also have Sumit. Sumit is an HR professional, people strategist. He helps companies of all sizes all around the world, some of which have included Deloitte, and he specializes in just bringing in new and exciting HR practices. So that is our panel for today. And we also have our fantastic guest speaker. Now, if you're with us live or you're watching the video again, you might recognize this face. We have Greg Roche today. We've had him on the forum before, so he's not a first timer. And we loved him so much, we brought him on back. So if you don't know Greg, maybe you weren't on the last panel that we had with Greg, he is an author. As you can see, he has written a book called The Fast and Easy Guide to Networking for Introverts. And so he's a networking expert. He's worked in human resources for many, many years. He's a speaker as well. And so today we are just going to be discussing how to network in person. You remember like in-person things? How did we do that? You know, we've kind of forgotten along the way. We've been isolated for so long, and now masks are finally coming off. We're going back into offices and we're going to conferences and live events. So Greg is really here to guide us and coach us a little bit on what we can be doing and how we can best network in person. So welcome back, Greg. We're so excited to have you here, and we really hope you all enjoy this session today.
Great. Thanks, Jules. Thanks for having me back. Sam, Char, Smith, Howard, thanks for having me. I'm looking forward to this conversation today. And, you know, you gave me the intro, so you kind of give the background. I think when you asked, you said, hey, do you want to come back and talk again about networking or something else? And it really was great timing, because I've been working on how do people start getting back to networking at conferences or in person or at events. And it's a little bit strange for me, because my whole book is around how you network without going to events. But I think there's a lot of things that translate from connecting with people one-on-one and online that you can also use as you start to go back to these in-person events. And we haven't done that for a couple of years. You know, we've been locked in our houses. We haven't gotten out to see some people. I went to an event here. I'm in Denver, Colorado, and our Rocky Mountain Total Rewards Association had a get together. It was the first one they had in person in several years, and we got to get together and talk, and it was just like people were just like, oh my gosh, this is great. Like I've just missed this, you know, I've missed the interaction and the conversations. And so I really started thinking, how can we hone our networking game when we go to these conferences, especially if we're people that don't really tend to gravitate towards, you know, large groups of people, or we just don't talk a lot in those groups, or we're more introverted. How can we put together a strategy to help us take advantage of these conferences? And so what I want to kind of talk about today, and I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. I've got just a few slides, and they're pretty straightforward, but I want to talk a little bit about how you can, again, put this strategy together. And I'm going to use an example as I talk through this. And the World at Work conference is coming up in May. I don't have any association with World at Work. I don't have any skin in this game. It's just one that's a Total Rewards conference that's coming up. So I figured it would be a good example to use as we talk through this. I'm not going. I have a personal conflict with the dates, so I won't be there. But again, if I was going, this is what I would do. So I kind of wanted to think about it from this standpoint. And I've gone to a lot of these conferences before, and I always feel like, you know, hey, I'm spending quite a bit of money to go to these, and I'm going to learn a lot. There's going to be a lot of sessions. It's definitely educational, but I always walk away with some good ideas. But I always wish I would have made more connections and met more of the people who are there, because these are people who are just like me in terms of career. They are into comp and benefits, and they're talking about the same sort of things. It would be great if I had the opportunity to connect with them afterwards. And I always feel like it's a bit of a missed opportunity that I didn't meet people more and have those conversations and develop those relationships. So that's really kind of what I've been kicking around my head, is if I was going to go to this conference, what would that look like? And I really break it down into three pieces, right? And we'll talk about each of these three pieces. It's really simple, not complicated. There's before, during, and after. So what would you do before the conference? What would you do during the conference? What do you want to do after the conference? Focused around networking. And so the first thing is networking starts as soon as you register for the conference. As soon as you've done that, you should start your networking process. Okay, so you know the dates you're going to be there. Of course, you've booked your flight, you've made sure you're going to stay in the hotel, you've gotten probably some sort of email or information from the conference that says, here's the schedule, and you're probably going to pick a content track or pick the sessions that you're going to go to. And especially, and I'm looking on my other computer here at the World at Work schedule, right? And so it's May 23rd through the 25th in Atlanta. And they have by day, here's all the sessions, but the great thing they have about all the sessions is they have all the presenters there too. So these are people who are experts on these things. And for the most part, you can click on it and either get to their LinkedIn or some information about them. As you think about this, it would be great, and you'll probably stand out because while this seems pretty obvious, I don't think a lot of people do this. Connect with the presenter before the conference. You can follow them on LinkedIn. You don't even necessarily have to connect. If you go and see if they're posting on LinkedIn, you can follow them. If you are connected, you can send them a message and say, hey, really excited to hear your presentation on blank at the World at Work conference. I would love to chat with you at some point during the conference. Something as easy as that. And they may or may not respond, but you're probably a name that's going to pop up in their LinkedIn message box, or if it's their email, you'll be in their inbox, and they may look at your profile, and you've at least sort of laid the groundwork to have that in-person conversation when you get to the conference. So that's one thing I would say to start doing right away. Now that you can scroll through, there's a lot of sessions. I'm not saying you have to connect with everybody, because what's the real possibility that you're going to talk to every single one of these people at the conference? But the ones that you're really interested in, that you really would like to ask more questions, you'd like to have a conversation about, connect with those people and do one a day. I'm not saying you have to spend hours and hours sending connection requests. Kind of spend some time, connecting with those people.
I think that's an outstanding idea. When I do career coaching, I talk about utilizing LinkedIn in that fashion, really identifying the pain points of certain companies or certain individuals, utilizing that tool. I think that's a great recommendation, particularly if you're trying to work with XYZ company and you identify a particular individual with a certain expertise, to connect with them on a very personal way, not just saying, hey, I'm a job applicant, or I really want to work for you, but more of a, hey, I'd love to meet you. I'd love to get to know you, versus just trying to sell you yourself or your, who you are. So I think that's a fabulous idea.
And also, Greg, I mean, do you like shoot off in using? I mean, we were just talking about social media earlier, but is we send out a note to our network saying, hey, I'm going to be at this conference. Hope that, if you're going to be there, hope to see you there.
Exactly. That's kind of the second point. There is not only connecting with the speakers, but all of these conferences usually have a web page or a hashtag. If you go look at the bottom of the page for the conferences, there's things for Twitter. Tweet that you're going, see if there's hashtags, continue to write posts or write things, updates saying, really looking forward to being there. Who else is going to be there, right? And you could throw that out there, and who knows, right? And it could be somebody that's not a speaker, somebody who just saw that and says, yeah, I'll be there. And they could take the opportunity to make that connection online. Again, setting up to make it easier so that when you get there, you've almost got a list of people you intend to talk to in person. That seems to be a hard thing. At least it's hard for me. I know it's hard for other people who are introverts. When you go to a conference, it can kind of be overwhelming. There's so many people. Who am I going to start talking to? So if you've got some people already that you've established that online relationship with, you've maybe traded some messages about what you're looking to learn or who you want to connect with. Once you see that person, it's a much easier start to the conversation. There's no sort of, I've got to come in with some opening line or some icebreaker or something. It's just, oh, hey, good to meet you in person. Like, great to see you. How are things going? And you can start the conversation there. But it's a lot less, I would say, intimidating to do that kind of online. We were talking about social media. And there's a lot of things about social media that can be really bad in terms of consuming our attention or taking our time away from us, but it's also a lot easier way to connect with people. It's a very low risk proposition to do that. And some of the ways I mean, I talk about LinkedIn, sorry, one second. I talk about LinkedIn all the time, but you can do this on any of them. I mean, that's just my platform of choice. But whatever's more appropriate for the kind of people you're trying to connect with, you can pretty much use it to connect with them.
Well, I was going to say that people love to talk about themselves. So if you can do that research ahead of time, have some facts about that individual, maybe their prior work experience or their interests, and get them talking about themselves. I mean, oftentimes that individual will find you more appealing because you're very interested in them and know a few facts about them. So I think it's great to do that research ahead of time.
Yeah.
No kidding. One thing, Greg, also, I think that to help, I mean, a lot of these conferences, they have these apps now that go with the conference too. And I know last time I went to World at Work, they had an app that showed all the attendees and ahead of time, and it was really easy to reach out given that app. So that seemed to be very helpful.
Definitely. I think usually they do, or bigger conferences do. So that's a great recommendation, is to get that, because that will help you also see who's there. In my experience, I don't know, usually when I've gone, I don't know if I've gotten the app in advance. So maybe they're doing that now, but that's the thing where, yeah, when you get there, definitely if they have the app, get the app downloaded, kind of start looking through that, see how you engage with people, and see if it's an opportunity to connect with some other people, and like I said, break that ice so that it's a little bit simpler to start that conversation when you're at all the networking meeting parts of the conference, right? They have networking things built in around meals and sort of after the sessions for the day, but again, just walking into a room full of people can sometimes be a little bit intimidating or exhausting for some people. If you have some of these things pre-set up, it's a little bit simpler to have that one-on-one conversation and not just walk into a room full of people and try to, how do I break into this circle of people that's standing around talking, right? If you have those things set up, maybe a little less intimidating. And then, the other thing is, before you go, set your goal. And what I mean by that is, what do you want to get out of this? Of course, you want to get knowledge and information from the sessions, but in terms of the connections, is there a particular person, group of people, type of person, or companies that you want to connect with? And really get specific on that. And what I mean by that is, if there's certain companies that you see, there's going to be somebody there from those companies, write that down, have that written down somewhere, get really specific. If there's an individual speaker that you really want to talk to and maybe you haven't connected with, write that down. If you're going through the app when you get there, of course you can add this to your goal when you get there, and there's some people that you see and you're like, oh, they work for this place, or they do this or that, or they are in benefits and I'm in comp and I want to talk to somebody in benefits because I want to break into that. Exactly, right? I'm talking specifically like the person's name or the company's name. If you can't, that's fine. You can be more vague, but the more specific you get, the more helpful this will be. And this is going to come into play when you get to the conference in terms of how you can use or have other people help you make connections at the conference. But get really specific on what you're trying to do as a goal going into the conference, not just, I just want to go for a couple of days and, stay in a nice place and go sit in a bunch of sessions all day, but get more specific about what you'd like to walk away with. All right, so you've set up your strategy, or you've kind of connected with people in advance. You maybe have some people that you've said, hey, I'll see you at the conference. You have a goal. People know you're going to be there, and then you show up to the conference and there's a ton of people and everybody's going to meet a bunch of new people. How can you be memorable? And the reason why I say be memorable when you get to the conference is because if you do something memorable, people will remember you, and they are likely to also help you network at the conference. They're likely going to introduce you or say to their other conference attendees, you need to meet Greg because he's doing this, and I remembered him and he would be a great connection for you. So my point here is you're going to want to stand out in some ways. And I get for introverts, they don't always want to stand out. So I understand that. Not everybody's going to want to do all of these things. So some of this stuff you can dial up or down depending on your own personal comfort, but I would leave that to you to figure out where that comfort is. And the first thing is name tags. In every conference, you have a name tag, and sometimes they're huge and sometimes they're small and they come on lanyards and there's all these different things, but don't pass up the chance to make your name tag different. And the reason why I say that is everybody looks at everybody's name tag. You say, well, who are you? Where are you from? What company do you work for? If you do something different there, you can definitely be memorable. And it can be as simple as taking your name tag and either on the front of it or the back of it or wherever you want, like writing something else on it, adding to your name tag, saying, and I did this at this event I went to. I said Greg Roche, United Health Group, and I wrote underneath it, I said, I'm hiring comp consultants. That was what I wrote. And everybody came up to me and was like, oh, you're hiring people? I've got somebody I could refer to you. I didn't even have to say anything. They came up to me and I got a couple referrals for people that we looked at for some different positions. If you're not hiring, you could say, I want to meet blank. I want to meet benefits leaders. I want to meet somebody who works at such and such a company. And so, think about what makes sense there. But this goes back to your goal, right? And this is what I was talking about. If you have a goal to meet certain people, you can possibly put that on your name tag. And let's say there was 5 companies you wanted to meet somebody from, you could put them all 5 on there, right? And the reason for doing that is once you've done that, number one, you're standing out. So people are going, oh, this guy changed his name tag. What a crazy idea. I mean, simple idea. Why didn't I think about that? But, he said he wants to meet people at these 5 companies, and they're going to remember that likely, maybe not consciously, but subconsciously, they're going to remember that. And the next time they talk to somebody that works at one of those companies, they're going to say, oh, Greg, this guy, he's got it on his name tag. He wants to meet somebody from one of these companies. You need to go meet this guy. Go, let me introduce you. Or he's standing over there, so you can go meet him. And then you get introduced. So you're doing something with your name tag that's a little different, that stands out, and gives people the opportunity to remember something about you and also help connect you to other people that are at the conference. It would even go so far as to say, you never know what the size is going to be, but if you were really planning ahead, I would just say you could take an index card or a piece of paper, or you could even go to Office Depot or Staples and get a box of the name tags, just like a small box of the cards, and in advance write down what you're looking for. And if you really want to get crazy about it, you could do something like print your LinkedIn QR code on your name tag or something. To put that in there, and people be like, oh, what's that? And you're like, that's my LinkedIn profile. And they scan it and go to your profile on their phone and connect with you. So there's a lot of things you can do with this to try to stand out. Other people have said things like, wear something that, well, I've actually said this before, wear something that's memorable. Again, not everybody wants to stand out in those sort of ways, but if you have a weird hat or some sort of original hat, or you have some piece of clothing that is your signature color or something that you wear, or I even read an article about an individual, this lady who has this coffee mug that's really bright pink and really stands out, and she walks around with it all the time. And her point is everybody's going to come talk to the lady with the pink coffee mug, right? And so it's just a way to kind of attract attention. Now, like I said, not everybody wants to attract attention, so you dial this up or down however you want. But I would say at the minimum, do something to make your name tag stand out a little bit so that people remember you.
So, hey, Greg, you were talking about, right now, business cards, right? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
what is the new take on business cards? I've been seeing these electronic cards that are out, and I think people are a little bit more shy about handing out cards nowadays after the pandemic. What is your thought there?
I have personal thoughts about that. I think I don't hand out business cards, and that's me personally. I know a lot of other people love to do it. There's just so many other ways to exchange your information. I have collected so many business cards at conferences that just go in a drawer and I never look at them again. And that's just on me, right? There's other people I know that have apps that scan business cards and they go into their contacts and they manage it. So if you do that, great, sounds good. I don't tend to hand them out because I end up carrying them around. I forget to give them out. Again, that's just me. If somebody says like, do you have a business card? I say, they don't have those where I work. And when people go, well, where do you work? And I say the 21st century, they kind of go, oh, okay, I get it, right? So what I usually do is I take my phone and then the LinkedIn app, there's a way that you go in and there's actually, everybody has a QR code in the app. And so you bring up the QR code, somebody else can scan it, and then they have your profile and they can either connect or message or follow or do whatever they want. That's how I exchange my information. And the same if I meet somebody else. I actually have on my phone, I took a screenshot of my QR code because I always forget how to get to it in the app. So I just go into my photos and like go back to my QR code for LinkedIn and just show that to people. So that's my opinion. I think other people, if the business card is the way you want to go, that's great. It's just a matter of, how are you going to use that? But going back to the like standing out, if you're just handing out business cards and you're like everybody else, like how do you make your business card stand out? I mean, people get really creative when original with those. So maybe you can do that, but that's not something I've tended to do, but it doesn't mean it doesn't work. So that's just kind of my own opinion on it. But there's other apps you can use to like send your information to people and stuff. I don't know a lot about those. To me, apps kind of come and go, and sometimes they're good, sometimes they're not. I try to make it as simple as possible, which is exactly why I have a picture of my QR code for LinkedIn in my phone, just to make sure that there's nothing that's going to like get in the way of me exchanging my information with somebody.
Yeah, and it's those are fantastic ideas. I totally agree. Even down here in the last 6 months, I've collected so many business cards. They're just in a big old box.
Mm-hmm.
I'll probably not even look at them. And it's just creating a lot more clutter as we try to be more minimalistic. But yeah, certainly it's really good to try to capture at least the person's picture that you talk to. I don't know if you're like me, where you're talking to the person within 2 seconds, you're forgetting their name. They just said it like two minutes ago. And how embarrassing is it to say, I'm sorry, what was your name again? But if you can connect their face with their name and at least try to remember that, getting their LinkedIn profile is a great way, perfect way to do that.
Yeah. And then the point I make here where it says go beyond your headline is we all think it's great to go into the conference knowing here's who I am, here's where I work, here's what I do. And when I say headline, I'm talking about your LinkedIn headline. What do you have on your LinkedIn headline? Is that what you're going to tell people? And that's fine. But I would encourage you, again, in the spirit of being memorable, think about what is that one-line phrase or two-line phrase. Whenever somebody says, what do you do? Do you just want to say, well, I'm in total rewards at such and such a company? Or do you want to say, I'm focused on, attracting and retaining the best talent in my industry, whatever that industry is, by, XYZ, whatever you're working on. What are the problems or things that you're trying to solve or work on? That could be one way. So get a little bit deeper instead of just what I do in terms of my job title, and more, I solve this problem by doing these things, or I solve this problem for these people by doing these things, to make it a little more interesting and as creative as you can get to try to, again, make that stand out. So you're not just like, oh, I'm doing comp consulting, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with saying that, right? We've all done that. It's just everybody's going to say that. And so the point is, you want other people to say, you need to meet this person. The whole idea with being memorable is that the people you do meet go tell other people to come meet you, right? So that you're continuing to make different connections. So that's a little bit about that. And then, as we talked about in the prepping, your goal, if your goal is, I want to meet somebody at these companies, or I want to meet this person, or I want to meet somebody who's done, I want to meet somebody who has created a long-term incentive plan from scratch and put it in place, because I'd love to talk to them about how they did it. that's really specific. And you may or may not find somebody like that, but you never know. Somebody could say, you know, in some session, they could hear a speaker say something and say, oh, I need to tell Greg that he needs to go talk to this person. So it's getting more specific about what you tell people. And the target list of companies is something I talk to people about all the time when it comes to one-on-one networking. That and you mentioned it a little bit earlier when you say, you know, if you're really easy to help, it's a lot easier to help you. The target list makes you really easy to help, because an individual can look at that and say, oh, I know somebody that works here, or I met somebody at this conference that works at these places. Let me introduce you. So that goes back to your prep of whether that's on a piece of paper or a note card or something, like a physical list that you can show to somebody that they'll put in their memory, usually subconsciously. And then when they meet somebody from one of those, your name will pop up and they'll say, oh, I gotta introduce these people. So that's kind of the other piece about using your prep to make this work a little bit better for you at the conference. All of these are designed so that you, as usually somebody who's introverted, have people come talk to you, as opposed to you having to go and break the ice and make the first move and start the conversation. I don't know what my problem is. I just always feel like that's where I struggle the most. I just struggle the most with being the one who's like makes the first move, so to be the first conversation, like breaks open the conversation. Somebody comes up and starts talking to me, I'm perfectly comfortable having the conversation. So I try to think about what can I do to get people to talk to me, as opposed to me trying to go up there and be like, hey, how you doing? What's going on? It's just, that's kind of how I approach it.
You know, I was wondering what your thoughts are. I think I meet so many people that are so comfortable with their companies and their positions that years go by and don't even bother to even update their headlines or their profiles or even their pictures. Like we were talking earlier, you know, having outdated looking pictures and things. I mean, why do you think so many people kind of put that on the back burner? Because I think we don't know what's happening in our industries, what changes may impact our current jobs, our roles, our positions, or if we need to make a drastic move to a different company or whatever, not just in career, but also in your expectations in work. I mean, your manager might expect you to have connections with other companies, but why is it we put all that on the back burner, do you think? Or many people do, not everyone, but.
Yeah, I mean, I think unless, well, we have bad memories. I mean, we have short-term memories. We forget what it was like to search for the job. As soon as we get a job, we are so relieved that we got a job. We just want to focus on that and not worry about ever having to look for one again. And the problem is that that's not realistic. Likely, you're going to be looking for a job multiple times during your career, sometimes several times, and sometimes it's your choice, and sometimes it's not your choice. And it's always one of those things that whenever I talk to people about why they don't network, it's usually, I don't have time, I don't know anybody. It's not really a priority right now because I have a job. And I always try to tell people that a network is sort of like a garden. It takes time to grow. And if you plant a seed today, you can't expect that there's going to be food on the plant tomorrow.
Right.
And you've got to start now when you don't need a job is the most effective time to network. That's really hard for people because I think, especially when it comes to online networking, they feel like if I go to LinkedIn and I update my profile, my boss is going to think I'm not happy and I'm looking for a job. They're going to like see me updated or something, or they're going to be like, why are you on LinkedIn? Are you looking for a job? And so, and that doesn't have to be the case. There's a lot of good reasons to be on LinkedIn frequently. And a couple of those, like you said, are keeping up with trends, finding other people who are doing what you're doing and are talking about it, connecting so you can share knowledge, finding all these sort of, like I was saying, you go to this conference and you meet all these people, and that's okay, right? Your boss expects you to go and collaborate with people and get knowledge and bring it back.
Yeah.
But online, being on LinkedIn on a daily basis is almost like an ongoing conference if you use it that way. It's a way to find those people and share that information and that knowledge, or at least find the people who have it. And then the other thing, I try to turn it around when people say that is, you likely work on a team. that team is probably going to need to hire some people at some point. Isn't it better to hire people you have a relationship and maybe know what they do or can do, or you've like talked to them, at least to get them in the process, than to post a rec or something out there on a job board and get a bunch of people you have no idea who they are. All you look at is a piece of paper with their accomplishments on it and maybe their LinkedIn profile and try to make a decision. You have a couple of conferences or a couple of interviews over a number of hours and you got to make a decision. So if you can be out there on LinkedIn as an individual who's connecting with people in your industry and your function and seeing who's doing things and who seems to be good talent, because you can see their comments, you can see their posting, you can see kind of where they've gone, and you maybe have that conversation and they're in your talent pipeline, man, you open up a rack and you go to your boss and be like, I got 3 people that I think would be great. I know them all. I've interacted with them online. We should talk to them. I mean, whether you are the boss or whether you're working on the team and you bring that to your boss, you're going to stand out, right? You're going to stand out. So for people who tell me I don't want to get online and update my profiles and I feel bad about being LinkedIn because I'm not looking for a job, those 2 things I say are great reasons to make yourself feel better about being on there. Like, it's a waste of time that I'm on social media. And then the last one is, who knows what's going to happen, right? I mean, if anything, the last 2 years, I mean, you could have been superstar performer, top of your game in 2020 and in the, hospitality industry. And within a couple of weeks, it completely shut down and they were laying off thousands of people. Right. So you don't know what's going to happen. So, and you might as well be the one who's kind of been ready with your network so you can quickly move than the one who's starting from scratch with everybody else.
Right, because careers don't last more than sometimes 2 to 3 years anymore. But I would also say working for a large organization of 160,000 employees, on the other hand, even internally, the beauty of working in HR is all the leaders of all the major departments, right? So it was odd when I saw departments get so siloed in their own function and not reaching out to colleagues either in different regions or different types of departments that could effectively help them in their role. So I think if you want to be a true performer and really succeed in your current company, you have to get to know people throughout that organization. It's a vital skill set that I think your bosses and executives expect of their people, right?
Yeah, great point, Char. I mean, you have to network internally in some of these large companies nowadays too. But before we move on, I'd like to ask a question to Sumit. I mean, when we're talking about how to prepare for conferences and how to network within conferences, Sumit, across the globe in different locations that you've been in, I know you've likely have gone to conferences in many different areas. Do you see some of the same trends, or are there any kind of cultural differences?
I think in my part of the world, it's a little tougher to start a conversation, which could simply begin with the air conditioning's not really working, right? And you start talking, and so we don't really make small talk the same way. It's something that we're now starting thanks to a lot of Americanization of organizations. But some of the ideas that Greg spoke about, I've done that again because putting a name tag with a QR code right here is a little tricky. What I've done in the past is a name tag here, but a sticker saying, got an HR question, connect with me, and a QR code on the arm. So that somebody who's a little shy in terms of coming right up to me, pointing a camera in my face, can just come over to the side, scan and connect. Also, there are apps. I've only used it once. There's an app called Hi Hello, where you can have multiple versions of a business card. So you can have different kinds of branding. You can connect as, for example, in my role, I solve different kinds of problems. So I can have a different card as a consultant. I can have a different card as, say, a speaker or a writer, and so on and so forth. And becomes a little easy because I can simply take out my phone, show the person the right QR code, hope that I'm not getting confused and giving the right code to the right person. and there's that. Um, in terms of pre-preparation, the apps are catching on, like we discussed. So a lot of times you can network a little easier without really starting off a conversation. But the breakout rooms, the fireside chats with certain speakers, they help in breaking the ice a little bit, because the good speakers, they try to encourage you to talk. The only thing I warn people against when attending conferences is if you're planning to compliment a speaker or a writer on their book, um, make sure you've read the book first, because you might just say, "Oh, Greg, I really enjoyed your book.
Yeah.
I think it was phenomenal." And Greg goes like, "Which part was your favorite?" And you're, okay. So be a little prepared is what I advise, and be authentic when you're trying to connect with.
Yeah. Yeah, I think those are great ideas. I love the sticker idea, like you said, because that's as easy as, and you could do that before you even got there, right? You just write down whatever you want to put on the sticker, you show up, you pop that on your name tag, and like you said, people are all of a sudden, they'll come ask you questions or start talking to you. So that's a great idea. I think the piece about connecting in person, and this kind of goes back to, you set up these times, or you prepared, and you maybe made some online connections with people, and now you're at the conference. Be sure to have those conversations. Be sure to talk to those people, and be sure to follow up on those. But it kind of goes back to something Shar said at the beginning that I really like, and is something I always tell people whenever they're having a conversation, whether it's at a conference or whether it's they're connecting online and having that first real conversation, is ask people about themselves. I always tell people that number one, it makes it so much easier for you on the conversation. And I tell people it's the topic that people know the most about, and that they can it's their favorite thing to talk about. I don't mean that in like a narcissistic way, but we all know the most about ourselves and our experience. And some people will say, "Oh, I don't like to talk about myself." But when you really kind of have a one-on-one conversation, and it's, tell me what you're working on. Tell me what's the biggest problem for you. What's a challenge that you're working on? What was the one thing you wanted to get out of this conference when you came here? And then let them talk. And it's not a time for you to say, it's not a time for me. It's not a time for me to say what I'm doing and what I want and all those things. It's a time for you to listen to what the other person's saying, and really try to understand what is it that you're challenged with, or what is it they're struggling with, and find those opportunities to either connect them with another person, or give them your ideas, or make a recommendation on a book or something like that. Find a way to give them something of value anytime you have that conversation, but especially at conferences, because I can remember going to conferences, and it feels like when you start talking to people, sometimes they just want to talk about everything they're doing, right? They're giving you this pitch and they're telling you all these things. And of course, if you're in the vendor hall, you should expect that. Right? I mean, you went in to see the vendors are going to, tell you all their stuff, right? Because that's why they're there. But if you're having the conversations with other attendees or with speakers, really, really make it about them and let them talk. And then, the thing I go back to, if you're talking to someone and they're just letting you talk and letting you talk about yourself, don't you usually find them to be one of the most fascinating people to have a conversation with? I mean, if you're the one listening, like, people will go, "We're really easy to talk to." And don't we all kind of strive for that? You'll be one of their favorite people to have a conversation with, even though they're the ones doing all the talking. So really make it about them. It kind of reminds, I was talking about the vendors a little bit, because I kind of break down the people at a conference into 4 categories. There's probably more, but you got attendees who are the people that are paid to be there. You got speakers who are the presenters. You've got organizers, which I think is something you shouldn't forget about. If you can connect with organizers, that's a great thing to do as well, because they know everybody that's at the conference. And then the vendors. And sometimes people try to shy away from like the exhibit hall because they don't want to get roped into talking to the vendors. But if you go into it with the right mentality, you understand why they're there. They're trying to do business just like anybody else. Vendors meet everybody. I mean, they meet a lot of people, and they're in the business of remembering people and what they're doing. If you were to walk through there with your name tag or your list or whatever, the people you want to connect with, the vendors can be like, oh, that person was just here. I can introduce you. So don't avoid the vendors. I mean, again, understand that they're going to be trying to do business and sell stuff to you, and you can be polite and you can listen, and who knows, you might learn something. But at the same time, they're also pretty well connected in your industry and with what other people are doing at the conference. So it's okay to go have that conversation with a vendor. So that's another thing that sometimes I think people try to avoid at conferences, especially if they are sort of more introverted. They don't want to have a lot of those conversations. So I think, you know, we already talked about sharing info and different ways to do that. So that's kind of what I was going to go to with the QR code or LinkedIn profile or other apps that you can use with a card. But any other sort of points before I move on to, you know, what you do at the end of the conference?
No, I thought that this is all great information, Greg. Thanks. Continue on. Let's talk about how to follow up and so forth.
Yeah. So of course, you know, you've done a lot of work. You did all the prep, you set up conversations, you met with these people, you talked to them, they talked to you. Hopefully you made a connection. You guys have exchanged some information. Don't just waste all that effort. Don't just walk away and tell yourself, hey, I should follow up, but I'm not going to. And don't also wait to get followed up with. Be the person who takes that information and follows up either with email or through some other social media message and just says, hey, you know, had a great time meeting you at the conference. I know we talked about this, would love to, you know, chat again in more detail, and either do it on a phone call or a video call. If you live in the same city and you're comfortable meeting in person, you know, try to set up the meeting in person, but don't just let the opportunity pass. It's so easy to go home. You're tired because you've been, you know, going for a few days, you're sleeping in a hotel, you probably traveled home, and it's easy to just kind of say, okay, I'll get back to it. And then you go back to work on Monday and you've been off for a week and you got emails, you got to follow up on all these things, but find a way to follow up. And even if it's just spend 15 minutes a day going back through some of your notes and your contacts, you know, send that email. Now, not everybody's going to be as excited as you are to connect and stay connected. So if somebody doesn't respond right away, or if it doesn't turn into a long conversation or anything else, that's okay. But definitely be the one that follows up. And continue to try to help other people. Maybe you've thought about something in the conversation and you've got some new ideas. Always feel free to follow up with a person and share your ideas. Sometimes it might be a few weeks later and you say, oh, I learned something new and I was talking with this person at the conference and you know, I should let them know about it. Feel free to do that. I mean, I think you're not selling them anything. You're not necessarily obligating them to anything. You're just trying to share and be helpful. So definitely make sure you do that. And then also be easy to help. Like I've said before, is have that list, or if you were talking about things that you were interested in, you know, let people help you, let people introduce you, let people connect you with other people as they sort of think about the conversation. And if somebody reaches out to you first, you know, make sure that you follow up with them. So I guess the whole point is that it all comes back to follow up, but it's so easy to walk away and just let this opportunity go. And this may be the only conference you go to all year. You may only go to one or two. And if you've spent all this time and done all this work, make sure that you just don't let it go to waste. I guess.
Greg, any advice on when to give up on following up? You know, like how many times you check in with a person before you say, oh.
So when I'm generally telling people about sending emails and or messages and people aren't responding, the first thing I say is, have you ever had one of those messages in your inbox that you haven't responded to? And sometimes the reason is I had a bunch of stuff going on at work or in my personal life. I have it there. I know I need to respond. I just haven't gotten to it. And usually people say yes. So I say, you know, give a little grace there. They may just have some other things going on that you don't know about. If you follow up again, and you're like, hey, just like checking in to see if you got this, would love to talk about this, and they don't say anything, I would probably, kind of put it on the back burner for now. I tend to take my emails that I network with people or my messages in my LinkedIn inbox, and I will revisit where the conversation ended every 3 or 4 months. And I'll go back and just say like, hey, haven't heard from you, would love to chat. Now, if after probably 2 or 3 of those, you haven't gotten a response, I would say, okay, we're probably not going to connect. But I mean, I have had things like that where somebody like 6 months later comes back and is like, oh my gosh, going through my emails, totally missed this. So sorry, how are you doing? So I think you can maybe slow down on the follow-up. You don't have to follow up every day. I try to use the rule of what would I want to have happen. I try to put myself in the other person's shoes and say, I wouldn't want somebody sending me an email every day, like, what's going on? What's going on? What's going on? You haven't responded. So whatever kind of probably feels more comfortable for you is usually what I would advise for most people, is to try to use that same cadence.
So Greg, is your book in just hard copy, or do you have Audible or have a recording of your book?
I don't have a recording of my book. I have ebook and paperback.
Okay.
But I have not done the voice recording of it. I haven't gotten to that part yet.
Although it is super easy. If you open up in Word, you can have your Word read it to you if you're more of an auditory person.
Okay.
It's a new feature right now. It's
wow.
Any book you can have it read to you in any voice you prefer.
Wow. I'll have to check that out.
Yeah, I like that. They actually have some pretty decent voices on there.
So yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I like this slide here that you have here. So complete this sentence. Sounds great, but I still want to know more about ...
Yeah, this is something I always ask people, because I feel like whether it's in my book or some of the other presentations I've given, people say, okay, those are all great ideas, that sounds good, but it still doesn't work for me, or I still don't understand this, or I'm still hesitant about this or that. And what are those things? We talked a little bit about the fact people don't always network when they need to. And like I said, they'll say, I don't have time, or I don't know where to start, or I don't know how, or I feel awkward. And there's ways to overcome all of those that are fairly straightforward. And yet I still have people every day that'll say, I know I needed a network and I should have been doing it. And so I always want to ask people, like, what is it that's stopping you? Because I was a person who never did this when I was earlier in my career. And part of it was a mindset. Part of it was, I thought networking was basically like being a politician. Like, I equated it to like shaking hands and like backroom deals, very sort of like salesy type of stuff. Like, I equated it with that. And once I realized that it's really just about developing professional relationships that benefit both parties, based on trust and respect, that it was much simpler, much less intimidating. It was really about, how do I have a human conversation with another person and show interest in them and try to help them out. And then when they ask to help me, let them help me. Like, don't be the person who's like, oh no, you don't have to do anything, I'm fine, I'm good. Let other people help you by being very specific about what they can do for you. And there's this sort of like this concept that we don't like to be indebted to other people. And so if somebody has helped us in some way, we want to find a way to help them. Like, we need to settle up or even the karmic score, right? We need to make sure that we're not, sort of owing people favors. We don't like to do that. So when people say they want to help you, let them help you, right? Don't be hard to help. Certainly don't take advantage of them. Don't like ask them to do something that you wouldn't, do for them. But at the same time, like, I think that's one thing where people are like, oh, I feel like I'm inconveniencing people when they ask how they can help me. You're not. You're actually, it's almost more, it's like refusing a gift. It's almost like in some cultures very offensive to refuse the gift. And so take that and let people help you. So I think once I started thinking more about it in those terms, I started to find it was much easier. It was something I could do almost on a daily basis as part of my daily routine, and something that just all of a sudden opportunities started to show up in terms of, whether it was giving presentations or whether it was people saying, hey, I read your book and I will recommend it to other people. Job opportunities, all those kind of things just started to happen from a small amount of effort each day, focusing on having regular human conversations and seeing how I could help people and letting them help me when they offered. And when you look at it from that standpoint, I think you can get past a lot of those objections for networking.
That's really helpful, Greg. And I know we're getting towards the top of the hour, so I just want to acknowledge our speaker for next week. So I'm just going to take over the screen really quick here. So we have Jillian Faith that's going to be joining us. She's going to talk a little bit about unlocking performance. And I'm currently going through some coaching sessions with Jillian, which is great, on what's called positive intelligence, the positive intelligence program. So we're going to talk a little bit about that next week. And so I'm really looking forward to that. So join us on the People Strategy Forum. So as we are approaching the top of the hour, I just want to reach out. So Jules, do we have any questions that you've seen in the comments?
It's a little quiet on my end, Sam. So if anyone does have any last minute burning questions for Greg or any comments, let us know what you thought of the session. I, for one, thought it was awesome. So many cool little ways for because it is hard. I love that you were saying, and sorry to jump in, Sam, and talk. I love how you mentioned just finding ways to make people come to you to make it a little easier, a little less, anxiety riddled. So I loved all those little tips there. Thank you so much.
Welcome.
Yeah, I'll definitely be trying some of these concepts out, particularly in the next couple of weeks when I get back to Denver. So hopefully I'll run into you at a couple conferences.
Sure.
Yes,
Sounds good.
I'll check out your book.
I got a quick question. So I was just wondering, so once we've met people and so forth, and we know that we need to network, but how do we keep the ball rolling? Life gets in the way a lot of times, and we just forget to follow up with people. We forget to keep in contact. So what are some good techniques that we can use to just prompt us to stay in touch?
There's a ton of different, you could do apps, you could have a spreadsheet, all those kind of things. I've tried a lot of different ones, and to your point, I never keep up with them. And what I honestly will do is, if I have messages or emails from people, I have a specific networking folder that I put them in my inbox, in my email, and I will go back to that and revisit that and make sure I've responded. If the other people haven't responded, okay, I like to make sure my name is in the from, in the inbox and not the other way around. As far as on LinkedIn, I do the same thing in my messages. I have created routines or times in my day when that's what I do. And so I think I am a big believer in habits, and habits being things that happen for you automatically in a certain time in your day when they're triggered. And so building habits around when I'm going to be either in my inbox doing this or when I'm going to be in my LinkedIn doing this, I make sure I've at least responded to everybody that's sent things to me. So there's a lot of complicated ways. Like I said, I don't keep up with them. Habits for me are the things that do it. So I'm, again, whether it's tiny habits, which is an approach by BJ Fogg, or atomic habits, which is James Clear, making them small, making them things that are going to happen when they're triggered. Those are ways that I do it. Again, I think there's a lot of ways, but until I find time in my day and I really commit to making it a part of my routine, it usually doesn't happen too much. So that's how I approach it. I'm sure other people have different ideas, but that's kind of my thought process.
Well, this has been great, Greg. I really appreciate you joining us once more in the People Strategy Forum and sharing all this critical information with us. I know that I'm itching to get back out at a conference. I was just at one I think 2 weeks ago, and it was weird. I gotta say, I mean, there was a lot of people there, and after spending so much time alone, and it's a little bit frightening, but then getting used to it is important. And the funny thing is that this conference, they were expecting a lot less people. I mean, they had it, and just people are just trying to get out. They're just dying to get out there, and so I think we can expect there to be more people at these conferences in the future. So I think just get out there and go.
Yeah, I think people are a little bit in Zoom overload.
Mhm.
So
I know Melinda's ready to go. She's already saved the link and code to her photo gallery, so she's ready.
All right. All right. Well, thank you so much, Greg, for being with us once again. And everyone, see you next week on the People Strategy Forum.
Okay. Thanks.
Greg.
Right.
Bye.
Cheers. Bye.
Bye, everyone.